This is going to be turned into furring strips, or strapping for our walls. Got some flaws, got some knots.
Let me just say, for those of you who are watching who might not know what furring strips are, which is probably no one, but there was a time when I didn't know what furring strips were. They are like 2-inch strips that get placed horizontally all the way down the walls of the bus, and that is what the wall's attached to. It also allows us to have space between the sheet metal of the wall and the interior wall for insulation and wiring.
We've got 3/4 inch plywood. We're going to cut it into 2-inch strips, put one course down and a second course on top of that. I'm going to link a video from Chuck Cassidy who explains it perfectly. And we're following his lead on this, and you'll see that right here, I think. It's all about doing the best you can to keep the outside cold or the heat from coming into the inside environment. So 2 courses of 3/4 inch brings up the strapping to 1.5 inches.
Yep.
Here's a funny little tidbit. 3/4 inch plywood, it's actually
23-30 seconds.
Thank you. It's 23-30 seconds. It's kind of like how a 2x4 is actually not 2 inches by 4 inches. It's because of the processing.
All right.
All right, you ready? Okay, pull it up. Hold it.
Got it. It was moving.
We were twisting it.
I know. Okay. Yeah, it's pretty wonky. This is not really going to work.
Yeah.
What did we learn that time?
This is the A take. When Chuck did it, he had a proper workshop with a proper table saw sitting bolted into a proper workshop table. We've got this portable job site table saw, and we just got to make do, but we're doing all right.
What would happen if we moved this up and clamps to here, or put clamps?
Let's try it.
Let me grab a couple clamps.
I think she's right, as she often is.
I didn't know which one would be the right tool for the job.
The right tool for the job is the tool that does the job. Trying to rip a full-size sheet of plywood on a job site table saw is not easy.
And we're doing it.
But we're doing it.
We're in kind of a time crunch today because we got to go get our COVID and flu vaccines, and so we can't just stay here all day long.
Yeah, we're doing all right.
Perfect. 4th time's a charm.
All right. Watch Chuck do this on his table saw in the shop, and I don't know how he did it. I don't know how he got that straight lines with this. That doesn't even look straight. Maybe that's why. I think I might have solved the problem. Let's find out. When I was first learning how to do celestial navigation, I think I've talked about this before, my instructor did it by using what they called a cookbook method, which basically means you use your sextant, you get your number, you get your tables, and then you do the following steps to do the math. You don't have to understand why the math works, you just do it that way. And if you have a problem, if you come up with an error, it's almost always what he used to call a dumb error. But I just did a dumb thing. When I put this fence, when it was out here, I had to move this over to this one. See how they attach to there? Yeah. I moved it to this one. Okay. This one was out. You see that? So I just noticed that. I put it back and I just did one and it was perfect. And I'm thinking to myself, how did Chuck do that? Chuck did it because he didn't have his fence all wacky. I've said this before, and I'll say it again. There are mistakes we make, mostly because we don't know what we're doing, but we try. Most mistakes can be fixed. They can be repaired. A lot of the things I cut on here when it was wacky, we can still use. They're just not going to look perfect. But you do what you have to do, and you do what you can. So I've solved the problem. Onwards we go. Yay. Well, my microphone is off and I'm just using the camera audio, so if there's sounds different, that's why. Now that I figured out what the problem was, I was just barreling through those furring strips, no problem at all. I've got 1.5 sheets of plywood left to cut into those 2-inch strips, and then I'm ready to start installing them. I'm very excited. This is very cool. This is a huge step. Last time we had 5 4-foot by 8-foot sheets of 3/4 inch plywood that we were going to rip into furring strips. And I made a few errors when I was doing that. And let me tell you a bit about those. First of all, 4 by 8 sheets of 3/4 ply is very heavy. This is a wonderful little table saw. I've used this for a lot of projects around the bus since we got it. Nothing as large as a 4 by 8 sheet of 3/4 ply. We were going to rip them in half. This goes all the way out here, and then I move this over here. This way we can rip a 4 by 8 sheet of plywood lengthwise. Easy. However, you put it on here and it starts to shift a little bit. We screwed up the first rip that way, still going to use it, but then we clamped down the feet, which I will do again today. Then, when I wanted to start ripping the 2-inch wide sections for the actual furring strips, I moved this back. You can see I just did it again. This has a little notch here, and there's one opposite on the other side. Now what happened is I got this one in, I thought I had this one in, clamped it down, and started ripping. However, you can see my problem. It's off by that much. Now I didn't notice until I'd already ripped quite a few of those strips, and I was wondering, what is wrong with me? Why can't I do this? When I was walking past, I noticed it wasn't straight, and I just... There. I started ripping and it was working great. And then I noticed, however, that the top of the plywood was a little bit away from the fence, even though I knew I was pressing it against the fence. You see what happens? You see? I moved the blade up and you can see it's not perpendicular to the table because I accidentally released the locking mechanism that holds it perpendicular and it started to bevel on me. I realized that problem, got it fixed, and at that point I was able to start ripping those panels into 2-inch sections. No trouble at all. Bob's your uncle. One after the other after the other. One more little error on my part, however, which I'm going to rectify today. This thing puts out a lot of sawdust. I was also breathing that sawdust, and I've been coughing for the last 2 days. So I had glasses on, sometimes I even wore the gloves, but I think just because you're outside doesn't mean you're safe from particulate matter getting into your lungs, especially when you're working this close to it. Wear a mask. I'm a bad example. So today we've got 3 more panels to cut. I'm going to get those done probably very quickly. I'm going to try to move these furring strips onto the bus because we want to start using them tomorrow or Friday. I'm thinking probably I will start doing a couple tomorrow. But yeah, let's get this done. This is just a little over, basically 1.5 4x8 sheets, all ripped down to 2-inch wide segments. There's a whole big bunch more outside that we'll probably bring in as we need, but this will get us started. So we've been having some problems with our audio hardware lately, as you may or may not have noticed. Yesterday I had filmed this really wonderful masterpiece of narrative and joy and information, only to get home and discover that there was no audio. Lost to the ages, as they say. Real quick, we've managed to cut, once I figured out all the problems with the table saw, user error, we got all our furring strips cut. We've actually gone pretty far inside on doing them. We've got the first course pretty much done, and this is going to be the second course. Probably there'll be some leftovers, I think. But yeah, this is it. I'm very pleased. Let me go show you the inside. It's a little chilly this morning, so I turned the heater on. All right, so we've got quite a bit done regarding the furring strips, and I'll show you that real quick. All of the first course is done, all of the short pieces between the windows. If you haven't watched that video I linked to earlier, or you don't plan to, let me give you a quick primer. on how these work. The idea is to minimize thermal bridging. We want to be sure that the outside environment doesn't mingle with the inside environment. Part of that is insulation, of course. We do that. But also there's a thing called thermal bridging. And when you have a metal-skinned home, thermal bridging is when the outside environment comes through a highly conductive, thermally conductive material like this sheet metal into another highly thermally conductive material like this steel tubing, and then through a third highly thermally conductive material like this screw. The first course of the furring strips is screwed to the frame of the bus using Tex self-tapping wood to metal screws. That goes into the frame of the bus. I can even feel it, it's cold. So this screw provides a bridge or access for the outside environment to mingle with the inside environment, as small as it is. And it makes a big difference when you have like this one here, and you've got them all over the bus. That can make a big difference. You want to minimize that as much as possible. So what we do is we attach the first row of furring strips using 3/4 inch plywood to the frame of the bus, just like this. In order to minimize the thermal bridging and therefore minimize the effect the outside environment has on the inside, we're going to put a second course of furring strips on top of the first course using the same 3/4 inch plywood strips 2 inches wide. When you put on the second course, the idea is that the second course never contacts the thermal bridge, which is the screw here. Therefore, the interior of the bus, when we put the wall panels on, will be attached to this. We'll have no thermal bridge between the inside and the outside. That's the idea. You stagger the seams, and this provides you a place to screw in your wood paneling and basically anything else you want to put in there frame-wise. And that's what we're going to do. Now, you lose a little bit of interior space when you put on double the strapping. I think it's a worthwhile loss. We want to be able to control the environment. That's our goal. To that end, minimizing the thermal bridging is a big deal. Some places we won't be able to. The jack studs on the windows, for example, we're kind of committed with those, but there's only a few of them. It's, again, minimizing, not eradicating completely. Cool, huh? What we use were these Tex 1 7/16 number 10 wood to metal self-tapping screws. They have a little wing there that goes through the wood, and then the tip will go through the metal, and the threads will bite into the metal. Works really well in the metal. Doesn't work so good going through the wood. So what I found was if I drill a little pilot hole through the wood, it'll just go through and then very easily bite into the metal. Here are the wood screws. Number 8, 1 1/4 inch, just got these at Lowe's. Think about the Tex. They have a Phillips head on them. Hate that. Nothing but problems. These have it's got a Torx head on it, the wood screws. Love this. Really handy. So here is the thing. This has a little bugle-shaped head on it. The Tex screws bite in and sink that head fairly quickly and fairly easily because it's using the metal to pull it in. These don't work that well that way because it's biting into wood, and you risk the potential of splitting the wood or even stripping out the hole. So pilot drilling, this time with a countersink, works really well. And then a very simple, Torx bit, in you go. It is super fast. Let me show you. And that's it. Very simple. It's surprisingly comfortable in here, considering it's about 3 degrees outside. Here's another quick primer. Another quick lesson from my own experience. When you have beams like this one, for instance, that goes the entire length of the bus, as there is here and also here, don't run an entire first course back to front. I shouldn't have done that. I should have just taken little blocks, put them at evenly spaced intervals. That way, well, for one thing, you wouldn't waste as much wood, but also I would have space to run my cables like here and especially down here, because this is where the utility bay is. So all the wiring is coming up here. So what I should have done is just run a little block here, and that way I'd have space, put the cables underneath the second course. So what I'm going to have to do here is use the multi-tool, cut out a little notch, and then I can put the second course over top of this cabling when it comes out. I don't plan on putting the second course on these particular first course furring strips until I've finished roughing in the wiring, and so I know where they're going to be. No sense in cutting out a block here when I need it to be over here. So yeah, onwards. Well, I've got a fair bit of the second course done, almost the entire passenger side wall, and most of the front on the driver's side, down above the bathroom, which is right here. I got my Kindle scribe here, and we've got a nice little, can you see that? Jamie's been diagramming. I'm going to sit here, I'm going to make a list of the electrical appliances, basically how many circuits we need for the electrical outlets and the lights, because after we do the furring strips comes roughing in the wiring, and I'm a little daunted, I'm a little nervous, not a big deal, I've never done it before. I've been thinking about it for, I don't know, 4 years. It's a little exaggeration. I don't think it'll be that difficult. I think I've got it sorted out, how many circuits, what needs its own circuit, what can get by on the circuit with other things. So yeah, that's what I'm going to do now. But I wanted to bring this video to a close by wishing you and those you care about the best of the holiday season from us. No matter which holiday it is that you celebrate, or if you don't celebrate any at all, just the best of the season. It's winter. Stay warm. We're going to take next week off, so no video next Sunday. However, when we come back the following week, there's going to be some changes, and I think you'll be impressed. So check back with that. If you find any of this interesting, hit the like and subscribe button. It really helps us out, because, we're all in this together. I make mistakes all the time. If you make mistakes, and if you know somebody who's doing something like this, share the video with them. That helps a lot too. And we'll see you in a couple weeks. Bye, everyone. Now, washer dryer.